Warm transfer protocol. Warm transfer. This was developed by the Intake Network. So it's the simultaneous seamless transfer of a telephone call and its associated data information from one worker to another worker or supervisor for the purpose of supporting the caller and ensuring that the caller lands with the correct service. So what would you say are the key words in this definition? Seamless, yes, absolutely. It should be smooth and not leave people falling between the cracks and left wondering what's going to happen next. What else? Supporting, yes. Okay. What do you think that should mean in this case?
The person who's calling for service should feel that they're actually getting help rather than getting run around.
Okay. People should feel like they're actually getting help, not just getting a run around or passed on. There's another one back here. Right, to the correct service, which you're going to learn more about this afternoon as well. The partnership has developed an access map that I think will help people in the future to be more accurate with that. Any other words here? Yes? Exactly, so that the family doesn't have to repeat their story over and over and over again, which is one of the things we do hear from the families that can be so frustrating. Okay? Good, excellent. All right, so the purpose of the protocol, this is pulled right out of it. Enhancing the front door navigation support, not passing the buck really to back to the caller. That's one point. Second one, for you as workers providing intake or providing referral help, it's for you to better understand the best practice of the warm transfer protocol as a practice within that function. Anything less, so what we have often been doing and what we've all been guilty of at some point, that handing off the list of 6 phone numbers, is really not considered best practice in terms of supporting people. And so doing anything less than the warm transfer is really not meeting acceptable standards of practice. And then the third point around the purpose of the warm transfer is to streamline the intake process, to make it easier for families and for individuals to get people directly where they need to be, as somebody said back here. Interestingly, as I was putting this together, the York ASD Partnership has just approved, I guess, a tagline or an elevator statement to help communicate to the general public what we're about and what we're trying to accomplish without having to go through the 15-minute presentation I do for you. And this is this, whoops, is it here? Oh, somehow that didn't end up there. Oh, I've got it here. Good. So I'll read it to you. Connecting to people who understand autism spectrum disorder and can link to coordinated support services in York Region. Connecting to people who understand autism spectrum disorders and can link to coordinated support services in York Region. So that's a kind of trying to capture the whole system change of more coordinated services in a nutshell. And it fits pretty well with what the warm transfer is all about. So let's quickly look at the warm transfer process. What's required of you, and it's probably not new information for most of you, but we'll review it quickly anyway. So the first one is you have to obtain verbal consent to share the information the person has provided with another person if you're making a connection for them. And you need to document that the person gave verbal consent. So one of the first stumbling blocks people often say about, well, warm transfers, I have to have a written consent that I can communicate with someone else about this person's situation. You can do it on a verbal consent for a warm transfer, as long as you document the verbal consent having been given. You need to identify how you'll share that information with the other person. And you can do that in a variety of ways, as you see here. The other thing that will come into play here is if your agency is one of the 21 organizations that belong to the partnership, you'll already be signed up as a user of the electronic record. And there's also a consent process to access or open the electronic record. If the family already has one, you're just accessing it. If they don't currently have one, then you're opening an electronic record for them. And they have to give consent for that too. You'll learn more about that in the next module, Module 6. So here are some of the options for doing warm transfers as outlined in the protocol. You can try to make the connection immediately. I think they called it a real transfer or real warm transfer or something in the document. Attempting to engage in a three-way call with you, the worker you're referring to, and the caller. And you can connect and explain while on the phone together. It's not always going to work, I don't think. So another option, and probably most often will be the case, is that you will call another worker and you'll get a voicemail. So you'll leave detailed information for the other person. And what this means is that there are responsibilities for the receiving worker as well related to the warm transfer. That when you get one of those calls, you're obligated to call the original caller, the parent, let's say, to be clear, back, referencing the call from your colleague in another agency. It also includes the responsibility to follow up with the original contact, with the original worker, to confirm that the warm transfer was received and that contact has been made. So there are responsibilities on both ends, whether you're the person initiating the warm transfer or receiving the warm transfer. And a third option, also common, I think, is that you'll arrange for a three-way conversation in the future. Knowing the caseloads that most people have, it's not going to be often that you can actually catch the right person at the right time with the parent there on the day of the call. And it may not even be the best time when you think of some of the scenarios that you heard described, right? But you arrange for a three-way conversation in the future at a mutually agreeable time. So both workers together and calling the family back at a prescribed time. Any of those are a warm transfer. So it's not, it doesn't mean that you can't conduct business as you normally would, but you're going to have more steps involved with following up when you're connecting people to another organization.